The sound of her laughter reached me first, drifting through the doorway before I'd even crossed the threshold. That bright, lilting laugh that once dragged me from my darkest moods. The gentle tune I used to believe was reserved just for me. But on that evening at my buddy's gathering, it rang out for another. And though I couldn't sense it then, come dawn, my wife's whole life would shatter. The evening had kicked off like countless other get-togethers, tunes playing, glasses clinking, conversation buzzing with a volume that rang hollow. My pal Ryan had nudged us to come, pushing that we needed to break the routine. My wife Melissa jumped at the chance, maybe a touch too quick. Looking back, I should have caught the way she lingered over her mirror, or picked that dress from years ago. But it slipped past me. 12 years wed, and you quit probing the small stuff. You figure affection equals safety. You figure those 3 words, I love you, carry weight. We showed up, and she wandered off right away, saying she'd spotted a colleague. I brushed it off, snagged a beverage, and made small talk with faces I vaguely knew. Now and then, I'd scan the crowd for her. Not suspicion, really, just routine. I enjoy catching sight of her from afar. But an hour ticked by with no sign, and a subtle, nagging twinge began to stir inside. I tracked her to the backyard, where fairy lights danced in the breeze. She had her head thrown back, giggling at whatever a guy was saying. He stood tall, sharp in his clothes, and way too at ease with his palm resting at the small of her back. I halted. At first, I chalked it up to harmless flirting. Then her fingers grazed his shirt, light and teasing, and that grin, damn, that grin, the very one she'd flashed my way back when we were truly a pair. My mouth turned to sandpaper. I hung back by the terrace edge, peering out like stepping forward might somehow soften the blow, but it only sharpened the pain. The guy bent closer. She held her ground, and as his mouth grazed hers for the briefest instant, she allowed it. One fleeting beat was all it took to torch every layer of faith we'd stacked up. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a fuss. I simply turned and left. Legs carrying me forward, but my thoughts echoing empty. The surroundings smeared into a haze, songs, chuckles, murmurs, and I plodded on till I reached the vehicle, slumped in the seat, gaze lost in the void. She rolled in much later. I faked sleep, even as I sensed her easing under the covers next to me. His aftershave lingered on her skin, and I stared into the shadows, looping that instant in my head until daylight broke. By first light, a steel edge had formed within. When she stirred, I was suited up already. She rubbed her eyes, startled. "You're awake so soon." "Yeah," I replied, voice even. "Tossed and turned all night." She beamed, arching into a slow yawn. "The party was a blast, right?" "Depends on your perspective." She stiffened, my edge cutting the easy morning vibe. Her fingers fell idle in her lap. "What are you getting at?" I met her eyes dead on. "I saw you, Melissa. At the bash. With him." The blood fled her cheeks. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. "Daniel, it's not," I cut in, tone quiet but firm. "Save it. No fibs." I saw the kiss. Her mouth quivered. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" I pressed. Because from my spot, it seemed a hell of a lot like my wife cheating on me right there amid half the block. The quiet that followed hung heavy. A dense, choking quiet. Tears began to spill from her then. Soft, muffled cries that might have once cracked me wide open, but not anymore. I'd been hemorrhaging silently through the night. There wasn't a drop of emotion left to spare. "Who is he?" I demanded. She stayed silent. Melissa. My tone sharpened. Who the hell is he? A colleague? She murmured. His name is Eric. We've been on the same team for months now. I let out a harsh chuckle. On the same team. Is that the new term for it? Rivulets ran down her cheeks. It was an error, Daniel. I promise, it just unfolded. I had too much to drink. No, I interrupted. You don't stumble into a kiss. You decide to. Her weeping deepened. Please, I love you. I never wanted to wound you. The twist of it nearly pulled another laugh from me. You never wanted to wound me, yet here we are. I snatched my keys and bolted before the words could turn poisonous. I roamed the roads for hours, no plan, just putting space behind me. Each kilometer loosened the knot in my chest a fraction more. By midday, I eased into a spot by a green space. I dropped onto a seat, watching groups stroll past, families with giggling children, pairs linked arm in arm. That used to be our story. She'd gaze at me once as if I held her entire universe. Now I was merely the guy she returned to once another had sparked her joy. I dialed Ryan, the one who'd thrown the bash. His voice carried a wary edge right off. Hey, buddy. You holding up? You knew, didn't you? Yeah. He exhaled heavily. Daniel, hear me out. Don't make me spell it. A beat hung there. Fine. I knew about them. I pushed her to end it before it blew up in your face. I shut my eyes. The final shred of illusion tore free. Appreciate it, Ryan, I murmured. You've sealed the deal. When I returned that night, the place gleamed unnaturally. The sort of pristine that follows a frantic scrub from someone scrubbing their soul clean. Melissa perched at the kitchen table, ashen and damp-eyed, gripping our wedding pictures. I can make sense of it, she breathed. You've said enough, I replied. She denied it with a shake. No, you don't get it. I've felt so alone. You've pulled away these days. All wrapped up in your job. I figured you checked out. That bit home. Not that she was off base, I had drifted, but because she wielded it like a shield. So you plugged the gap with him. I shot back, icy. That's how you handle it. Her words fractured. It was one slip-up. A foolish slip-up. Don't torch it all for this. I propped against the doorframe, truly taking her in. You torched it the instant you picked him. You just hadn't caught on. That evening, as she wept herself under, I folded my things in silence. My outfits, my computer, the pieces I'd claimed on my own. I set my band on her bedside table, inches from her cell. On my way out, I fired off a handful of messages, crisp and calculated, to her manager, say. I'd learned that afternoon her teammate wasn't some equal. He reported straight to her. The sort of link that broke every rule in the book. Come sunrise, personnel had the proof, and as she roused, her foundation was already crumbling. Her calls flooded in. I let them ring. Then the notes piled up. Begs, regrets, warnings, vows. Begs, Daniel, don't wreck me. You're blowing it out of proportion. I love you. Come back. But affection can't weather disloyalty. It festers beneath. 2 days on, she appeared at my sibling's door, where I'd crashed. Her gaze was bloodshot, her tone quaking. They canned me, she uttered, shaking. They dug up Eric. He's been shipped elsewhere. Called it improper behavior. Daniel, tell me you had no hand in this. I held her stare a while. You brought this on, I said softly. I merely quit shielding you from the fallout. She crumpled to the floor, heaving sobs. I've forfeited it all. The work, the union, everything. I crouched low to level with her. No, I murmured gently. You didn't forfeit. You handed it over. Time wore on. The home went to market. Assets split clean. I pushed the papers through without spectacle, without grudge, just a hushed closure that sliced truer than fury. She pinged me sporadically after. Notes on her isolation, her longing, her readiness to mend it all, but I'd long settled with reality. You can't resurrect what's decayed at the core. Half a year down the line, fate crossed us in the market, row 5. She seemed diminished, worn thin. Existence had schooled her in ways I had no urge to observe. She offered a faint, brittle curve of lips. Hey, she breathed. You seem well. Thanks, I answered level. Same to you. She dipped her head, vision misting. Do you ever dwell on what we had? All the time, I admitted plainly. Though not like you'd imagine. I dwell on how devotion can mask the facts till they claw them bare. And how parting with another is sometimes the sole path to reclaiming your own. Her eyes brimmed. She stretched for my fingers, but I drew away. Farewell, Melissa. And for the first stretch since that evening, I departed without a backward glance. Folks figure disloyalty shatters you, right? It merely compels you to spot what was already fading. That bash, I believed I'd forfeited my partner. But with the dawn, I grasped I'd uncovered a treasure beyond measure.